And welcome into the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast, where we discuss everything in the world of football. My name is Anthony. Jeremiah is not here today. So we're going to begin talking about the Pittsburgh Steelers, more specifically Ben Roethlisberger. This kind of broke around the time we were shutting things down yesterday. So basically, the Pittsburgh Steelers got eliminated from the playoffs by the New England Patriots, and now Ben Roethlisberger is kind of hinting at least at the fact that potentially this might have been his last season, right? He's talking about potentially walking away from the game, basically, kind of referencing head injuries and everything else like that. He said, you want to be able to leave the game walking out of it in a healthy spot. You don't want to be carted out. He said, I'm just saying, in this point of my career, I think it's prudent, just like I'm sure James Harrison's doing, and other guys who have been in this league for a long time, to evaluate and just make sure, He's kind of one of those things where he kind of, sees other people after football and what's happened with them as far as maybe not even just brain stuff, but just like actual injuries to the legs, to your shoulder, something like that. Like, there's something like ESPN has Tom Jackson, right? And he's someone who was on there for a while doing the shows with Boomer, and he looks fine or whatever, but if you ever actually saw the guy walk, like, he's not the same kind of thing. Like, you can see the football took a toll on him, right? Like, this happens with a lot of former players. Like, you don't necessarily walk the same. Earl Campbell can't walk at all, basically. Like, he kind of sees the writing on the wall, and I understand that someone like a quarterback, you kind of play by different rules, right? But at the same time, you still see people who basically have problems afterwards, because just don't worry even about Junior Seau right now and stuff like that, Dave Duerson and people like that. You just look at something like a thing where you can't walk. And the thing with Ben Roethlisberger is, yeah, he's kind of an Iron Man in the sense of, like, he'll play through a lot of injuries, right? Like, he's not going to play every single game, but he's going to play through whatever injury. But at the same time, I mean, God, those kind of hits that he's taken, those injuries that he's had over the last handful of years, those are eventually going to come back and get you, right? Like, you can only take so many of those hits before something like that basically eats at you and you're not going to be the same guy. I mean, he played 14 games this year, right? Ben Roethlisberger did. He played 14 games, and he had a good enough season, but he didn't have the kind of season, like, not even that he had last year, right? Like, last year he was a lot better, at least statistically, 2 years ago as a quarterback, right? He had almost 5,000 yards in 2014 where he played 16 games. Last 2 years he's played a total of 26 games, right? And, yeah, he probably has maybe the best running back and wide receiver duo in the NFL in Le'Veon Bell and Antonio Brown, but I mean, the guy has also been hit an alarming amount of times, right? It's not one of those things where it's like, oh, okay, someone like Aaron Rodgers, where it's like, okay, it doesn't seem like he gets hit that much. Tom Brady can move around. Like, no, like, we've seen Ben Roethlisberger even going back to the motorcycle accident, right? Like, the man has had injuries his entire career, right? He's been someone who's been hit a lot of times. He was in a walking boot, in these playoffs at one point, and maybe that was for dramatic effect, maybe it wasn't, but at the same time, he at least was potentially injured enough to be in a walking boot, and the man, for his entire career, he's been sacked a ridiculous amount of times, 456 times, which, you want to try and put that in perspective, like, oh, okay, well, what does that mean? Like, being sacked that many times, is that a lot? Is that not a lot? I mean, 456 times, like, you look at that as far as, like, the actual career arc of all those kind of things like that. I mean, the man right now, let's see here, if he does Ben Roethlisberger, he's eighth all time, right, with 456. He's eighth, barely behind Warren Moon, who has 458. Drew Bledsoe's got 467. Phil Simms has 477. Randall Cunningham has 484. So basically, because he had 17 sacks this last year, he's, within a couple of years of being in the top 5 of sacks all time. And, it's hard to bring him down, but at the same time, you get hit that many times. You have all these injuries. You have all these, like the motorcycle thing. You have all these things that build up. And eventually, I understand him basically saying this. Now, there's another kind of part with this whole thing, right? Because, yes, he has a great wide receiver and he has a great running back. But the one time people have said before, the best time to actually talk to a player about potentially retiring, or basically to get a good quote from him, is right after a game, right? Right after you lose a game, I should say, because after you win a game, everything's great. Oh, my God, we won. This is great. I'm happy. If you lose and you're injured, then all of a sudden you kind of think like, oh, maybe I retire. Because, I mean, look, earlier on this season, Earl Thomas talked about retiring and legitimately talked about retiring. Not one of the things of like, oh, I think I'm going to retire, and the next day he takes it back. No. He was talking about it afterwards. Maybe he doesn't think about it right now. But once he broke his leg or whatever it was with with Earl Thomas in Seattle, he was like, yeah, I might retire. I mean, Calvin Johnson retired basically out of the blue with the Detroit Lions. Now that'll happen with the Detroit Lions because Detroit Lions, ask Barry Sanders about that. Just basically like all of a sudden, just like, yeah, never mind, I don't want to do this anymore. But with Ben Roethlisberger, he lost the game. He's obviously not happy that he lost. He wanted to get another Super Bowl, wanted to get to number 3. But he's probably just, after the game, your body hurts. You're probably just mad about losing the game. You just don't feel well. You're like, yeah, maybe I want to take a look at this. Because honestly, he's probably going to start taking a look at this at some point, right? Like, you take into consideration everything that's happened to him in the past, and you also look at the fact that, the dude is 34 years old. I understand that Tom Brady's 39, and Peyton Manning won a Super Bowl last year when I think he was 39 as well. And you get older quarterbacks that can play well into their 30s, and you get someone like Drew Brees who's still putting up massive, massive numbers at his age, and the quarterback kind of plays a different position than, say, a running back, a wide receiver, offensive line, something like that. But at the same time, you have something with Ben Roethlisberger where, yeah, maybe the quarterback is playing a different game, but he's not. He's still playing the game where he gets hit all of the time, right? And maybe he's angling for better offensive line play. Maybe he wants the team to draft an offensive lineman in the first round or something like that. Like maybe that's kind of what he's angling at too. Like, hey, look, like I just kind of want these things to happen because we saw that with Aaron Rodgers after he lost in the NFC Championship game to the Falcons. He basically went and just put everybody on blast, put Ted Thompson on blast. Basically, like, look, I want you to re-sign this guy. I want you to re-sign this guy. I want you to draft these people. Or I want you to get these things in the draft. Like he basically made a laundry list of everything that he wanted the Packers to do, and I can see Ben Roethlisberger kind of looking the same way. It's just like, look, man, like I am the guy in this organization. Like I'm the number one guy. Like I'm the one that basically keeps this team afloat because we saw Landry Jones come in, and he wasn't the same guy at all. So I can see him kind of looking at the organization like, look, man, like I don't have that much longer here. Like I've been playing since 2004. Eli Manning isn't the same guy that he used to be. Phillip Rivers is getting older in these whole things. And they all came in the same draft. So I can see him basically looking around and basically like, all right, look, like my body hurts, number one. That's not me saying anything that you don't already know. Like my body hurts with these whole things. That's number one. Number two, the offensive line I want to get a little bit better so that way my body doesn't hurt. And then number three, even if my body didn't hurt, like I don't have that much longer to do this. Like, yeah, Tom Brady can joke about, I'm going to play 5 more years. And maybe he does. But at the same time, like, once you're in your mid to late 30s, when you're in the NFL, at least as a quarterback, yeah, I don't have that much longer because if you were a running back, you'd be done. If you're a wide receiver, you'd be winding it down. If you're an offensive lineman, you'd be winding it down. Quarterback, you can play, but at the same time, with his injury history, you don't bank on it at all. You assume that he might be out of the league in a few years. Quarterbacks don't really do that. Like, quarterbacks that tend to retire early are ones who have like a legit medical issue, a la Steve Young and Troy Aikman, people like that who have had to retire early because of concussions, or maybe you had something where you're Joe Theismann, you break your leg, something like that. Things that like legitimately take you out at a certain point where you're like, all right, I can't really do this anymore. Favre played till he was older. Vinny Testaverde played till he was like 45. You get these quarterbacks, like I said, Peyton Manning last year was going to lose like 39 or 40. Same thing with Kurt Warner. Kurt Warner played till he was later on in his career. You can have something where you play later on in your career, but at the same time, with his injury history with Roethlisberger, I don't necessarily put this past him. Now, do I think he retires? No. I think he basically comes back and is like, all right, let's do this again. Let's go one more time. Let's go team rah-rah kind of thing. But at the same time, I totally understand what he's doing. I totally understand that he's basically trying to, like, reach out to the team and be like, hey, look, like, I want to make this as good a team as I possibly can in this short amount of time. Like, don't worry about this whole building for the future thing. Like, I want to do this thing right now, which isn't necessarily how the Steelers go about it. They kind of are the team that's one of those consistent, we're going to be in it every single year, and then every now and then we're going to have a chance to actually win the chip, right? That's kind of how that goes with them. I mean, you look at the history of the team since the 70s, right? Like, they basically are one of the most well-run organizations, period, in the NFL. Like, they've never really had that much of a dry spell with them, right? Like, Mike Tomlin's been there for 10 years. The worst they've ever done under him is 8-8, and that only happened a couple of times. They've been to 2 Super Bowls. They've won a Super Bowl. They've been in the AFC Championship games outside of that. They're a very well-run organization, but he's just like, look, like I got about 5 more years, maybe this whole thing. I'm thinking about retiring right now. Get me some good players outside of the quarterback, outside of the wide receiver and running back that I have. like I said, I don't think Ben Roethlisberger retires, but at least understand what he's doing, either through a PR standpoint of where it's just like, give me some players, or just basically tell the organization, like, look, I want these good players. Like, I don't have much time. Give me these people. But with that said, we're going to take our first break. We're going to come back. We're going to talk about another person in the NFL who maybe not retire, but might get cut. There's some murky situation right now with something like an Adrian Peterson. But with that said, we'll be right back here at the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
And welcome back to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. All right, so we're going to start talking about the Minnesota Vikings, specifically Adrian Peterson, the greatest running back in the history of the Minnesota Vikings, probably the best player in the history of the Vikings franchise, Fran Tarkenton included. So you got Adrian Peterson right now. He's kind of in that weird limbo place right now, right? He's technically 31 years old right now, but by the time the season starts next year, he'll be 32. And just pure running back standards, that is way over the limit that you basically want a running back to be. Now, Adrian Peterson's, like I said, historically, he's going to the Hall of Fame, right? He's one of the best running backs of all time. He got an MVP a few years back when he came back from a torn ACL. The man is Iron Man, right? The dude is someone who he basically would give the ball to and be like, yeah, we're fine. We got the running back on lock. Problem is, like I said, he's 32 years old right now, and he's basically coming off of 2 seasons where he basically didn't play, right? And we did play, wasn't the same kind of player, right? So in 2014, he basically had that one game where he basically only played because then he had the thing with the child abuse stuff. So they basically kicked him out for the whole year because Goodell didn't know what to do with the whole thing. You had basically him and Ray Rice, and they're basically just like, suspended, right? They didn't know what to do, so they basically suspended him for the full year with pay to basically just like not have the media swarm around him. Then last year he came back, 1,485 and 11 touchdowns. All right, cool. Adrian Peterson's back. All right, good. This year, not the same. He came, first couple of games, wasn't too good, right? He got injured, was gone for the season basically, but then he came back for one more game, and he basically wasn't the same guy, right? And this is the first time that you actually saw the kind of miles go on Adrian Peterson. He wasn't the same guy. Now, to be fair, he was coming into the year. He was playing with a different quarterback. He wasn't necessarily as used to him as he was Teddy Bridgewater, because you saw Bridgewater basically had his knee basically shredded. So he's coming in with Sam Bradford. This whole season he never had more than 31 yards in an entire game. He had 72 yards, for the whole season. I mean, when he was Adrian Peterson, he was busting off 80-yard runs left and right. So he's not the same guy, right? And we all kind of understand that. And even though I loved watching Adrian Peterson, he was one of my favorite people to watch for a long time, even back to when he was in Oklahoma. When he was a freshman in Oklahoma, he was just killing it, right? Freshman in Oklahoma, he should have won the Heisman Trophy, but that wasn't a time when freshmen didn't win the Heisman Trophy, just basically something that didn't happen. So I think I went to Jason White that year, the quarterback in Oklahoma. No, I think he was up for it that year. I don't think he won it, but I know that Peterson didn't win it when he should have. Then he had some injury problems later in Oklahoma, got to the NFL, and now, you look at his whole entire career, basically 12,000 yards, 97 touchdowns. He's probably going to play this year for some team, but the problem is it going to be the Vikings, right? Because the problem that we start running into is kind of the, situation where, okay, you were at one point the best running back in the game, and because you were the best running back in the game at that one time, we paid you a lot of money. Okay, well, now the problem is you have made all of this money, but you're not necessarily worth it. So now it comes a situation where, are you going to take a pay cut, or are we going to cut you? And if they cut him, then all of a sudden your best running back in the history of the franchise is gone. And now you got to scramble and figure out what to do, right? They asked Rick Spielman, the GM of the Vikings, if he'll be back. What's basically going to happen to him? Will he retire a Viking? He said yes, must go through the process and evaluate everything. So, they're obviously not going to pay him the $18 million next year. That would be something that's kind of idiotic, for the Vikings, right? Like, that's a lot of money to pay for a guy who's 32 years old when the season starts off next year. So, if they ask him to take a pay cut or if they simply cut ties, if he goes to another team, he'll absolutely be someone that'll help him out. Maybe he's not the same guy that he was even 2 years ago, but he's somebody who can help out a team. The problem is, what are you getting from him? Because I and a lot of other people thought coming into the season that, he'll be fine, right? Like, you kind of just insert him into the situation. Everything will be okay. He'll sort himself out. Come in, get 1,500 yards, even though he's 31 years old. Yeah, it's fine. Don't worry about it, because at 30 years old, he had 1,485 yards. So it's like, okay, cool. Yeah, he's just going to come in. Everything's going to be fine. Nope, hit a wall, which happens. But now it's just going to be an awkward thing for the Vikings, because what do you do now? Do you basically tell your franchise basically for the last 8 to 10 years, all right, we kind of got to let you go? It's happened before. Emmitt Smith didn't retire as a Dallas Cowboy. He played for the Arizona Cardinals. I mean, these things happen, right? Eventually, teams kind of move on from the players. I mean, even the quarterback situations happen, be it with Joe Montana or people like that. Like Peyton Manning didn't retire a cold. These things happen when you kind of have to let them go, because the NFL is kind of a cold business. Like, forget about what the Patriots do all the time. Just the NFL in general is a cold business, because you have a salary cap with so many players that you have to kind of figure out what to do. With the NBA, you can kind of keep people for a while. You can give them the, kiss on the cheek contract, where it's, the Kobe contract, where it's like, okay, you can stay for a long time and it doesn't matter. And then the baseball, there's no salary cap, so you can jack up A-Rod's and Jeter's contract as much as you want to and keep them on the salary, especially for the Yankees, because you can just pay whatever you want to. It doesn't matter. But the NFL, it's a little bit different. You have to kind of keep these things in check. So we're going to see what happens with Adrian Peterson. I would like him to stay with the Vikings, just because it'd be nice to see him finish his career with one team kind of thing. But, if he were to leave, you start to look at the other teams that are potentially in need of a running back, right? You kind of look around the league and you think, okay, so you got this team here. What do they need? Because you look at teams that are kind of in that range of they're close contending, but they have no running game, right? Kind of saw that a little bit this year with Seattle, right? Seattle had some good games, some bad games, the running back, but without Marshawn, they're not the same team. So you do something like with that. Do you do with the Green Bay Packers? You basically tell them, okay, put him on there. Now all of a sudden they have a running back finally, but then that becomes kind of a Brett Favre situation, right? Just kind of in reverse, where you go from the Vikings to the Packers. They're rivals. They don't like each other. Do the Viking fans start to boo Adrian Peterson? Do you go to the Giants, a team that didn't necessarily have a, set-in-stone running back the whole season? There's some options for him if he wants to leave. But it'll be interesting to see what happens with that. And I just saw something recently transitioning to something different right now. The NFLPA is composing a proposal for a less punitive approach to marijuana use. So they're basically trying to ease up on the things with marijuana, because, look, whatever you think about marijuana, good, bad, whatever, that's fine. The fact is that a handful of states basically decided that these things aren't illegal anymore. So the NFL to basically just do one giant blanket thing of, if you test positive, suspended kind of thing, seems a little archaic in some instances. Right now, I understand that federally marijuana is still illegal. It's one of those things, like, you can smoke it in California, you can smoke it in Massachusetts, I think, are one of some of the states that have it just basically blanketed, you can do it whenever you want to kind of thing. Colorado, Washington also. You can smoke it, but if a federal thing happens, it's still illegal. But they're trying to do these things to basically rein it in a little bit, so that way you don't get as in trouble, right? And they didn't actually give any specifics about what it would be about, necessarily, if you test positive with this amount, then you're good. If you test positive for this amount, it's bad, because, at this point, it's just in the asking phase, right? Like, DeMaurice Smith even said, like, this isn't necessarily something that we've run through. It's just something that I'm going to propose. They may not be okay with it. They may not, as far as the actually NFL owners and everything goes. The Players Association is just going to throw this out, trying to get this to work. And what honestly is probably going to happen is the owners are going to say, okay, that's fine. We'll do this, but we want da-da-da. Because there's nothing that is going to say, oh, yeah, fine, as far as, like, just being nice. That's not how these negotiations generally work. It's I'll give you something, but you got to give me something in return kind of a thing. And the way it works right now is This list is according to the Washington Post. So it takes 4 missed or positive tests to trigger a 4-game suspension without pay. An initial violation results in referral to the substance abuse program. A second violation is a fine equivalent to 2 game checks for a player, and a third violation is a fine equivalent to 4 game checks. Then the 4th time you get suspended for 4 games. The 5th time you get a 10-game suspension, and the 6th violation results in a 1-year ban from the sport. See, Josh Gordon. Right now there's all these kind of things of just 15 nanograms of THC. You get these things, and in the blood or urine. There's a lot of specifics about it, but basically, it takes 4 times for you to finally get popped for it and get suspended actual games. Before that, you get fined, you get put in treatment, you get all these things like that. But the 6th time is when you basically get, out of the NFL for a year, which is, like I said, what happened with Josh Gordon. So right now, they're just trying to basically throw these things out there and see what happens, right? And like I said, the owners will probably be like, okay, that's fine. We'll take this, but you got to give us something back in return, because that's how these negotiations work. But it'll be interesting to see what happens, because like I said, you have states like California, Colorado, and Washington that are basically, if you want to do it, you do it. It's fine. So it'll be interesting to see what they propose and what the owners basically say going forward. I like it in the sense of you don't necessarily have these things where you suspend players for something that has become a lot, for mostly it's been decriminalized over the last handful of years. So it'll be interesting to see how they go with that. But with that said, we're going to take the last break here. I'm going to come back. And I haven't talked about Super Bowl. I haven't talked about that as far as the teams or even the AFC and NFC championship games. I'll talk about that a little bit, since I haven't been here since Thursday. So with that said, we'll take our last break, and we'll be right back with the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
Want to find out what movies to go see? Then check out the GSMC Movie Podcast. It's your ticket to the latest movies, whether it's a new blockbuster event, romantic, comedy, or action flick. This show has got it all covered. They talk some what to go see now, don't bother, what's hot on Netflix, and everything in between. That's gsmcpodcast.com/movie-podcast. When it's all about the movies, it has to be this new show. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit gsmcpodcast.com for more info.
And welcome back to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. All right, so now we're going to go to the Super Bowl, right? So it's obviously, in a couple of weeks. I take the week off before, for the Pro Bowl, for basically Media Row, all these kind of things. We're basically going to have, your fill of NFL topics for the next 2 weeks, right? So game set, New England Patriots, Atlanta Falcons. The game was great in the sense of, you at least got to see 2 quarterbacks do a lot of fun things. Now, was the game close? No. The games were blowout, both of them. But you saw Matt Ryan, who probably will be the MVP, basically just throw it all around the field. And you saw Tom Brady, who also might be the MVP. Who knows? It's probably honestly between the two of them. You're going to see who actually gets the award. But now you have it set, right? You got 2 of the best quarterbacks in the game going at it. You have a defense in New England, which is fine. Pretty good. Not great, but it's fine. It's good enough to do a job pretty well, even without Jamie Collins, even without Chandler Jones start the year. Still a good team. The Patriots are a machine. That's what they do. It's fine. And the Falcons, the defense, it's fine. It's not great, but it's done the job, right? Vic Beasley has been the sack leader this year. He's been really good. He hasn't been necessarily, as a defense, the whole defense, I should say, isn't something that, is anywhere close to the defense that won the Super Bowl last year, but good enough. So, with these things actually set, right? Now the kind of situation goes, people say oh, who are you rooting for? Look, man, I'm a Dolphin fan, so it's not necessarily something where it's oh, I love the Patriots and I want them to win. No, there's kind of animosity with that whole thing because they're basically the team that always takes my team and just pounds it into submission every single year. It's oh, yeah, you're not going to win the division again. Since 2001, the Patriots have won the division 14 times. 14. You know who won it outside of that? 1 year, it was New York in 2002. And in 2008, the year after the Patriots won the perfect season, the Dolphins won it. You want to know where the Dolphins won it that year in 2008? Because Tom Brady's knee went boom, right? He tore his ACL. Chad Pennington came into the Dolphins. A division title. The Bills haven't done that since 1999. But now you have the situation where the Patriots are in the Super Bowl again, and I'm going to, I want them to win. Now, I understand everything I just said about, Dolphin fan, everything else like that. That's fine. Also, 2 reasons why I want to see the Patriots win the Super Bowl. Number 1, I've been watching sports since about 1996, right? Give or take something around there. It's when I started watching sports and actually following it, knowing what was going on. Like, yeah, when I was younger, I knew who Michael Jordan was, but that doesn't mean I watched basketball. So, in my entire time watching sports in general, and specifically football, I've seen Tom Brady. I've seen Tom Brady win Super Bowl in 01, 03, 04, 2014, and potentially this year. He has 4. And if he gets 5, he's pretty much the best quarterback of all time, right? That's basically how that goes. Right now, he's tied with Montana, and you can say, like, Montana never lost in the Super Bowl. Okay, fine. You have that argument. If Brady wins 5, he's the best. It's kind of how you go. Like, yeah, you can be a hater about it and say he has Deflategate and Spygate and all that stuff like that. That's fine. But then you're also acting like other teams in the history of the NFL didn't cheat. You had the history with the Oakland Raiders where they basically had Stickum on their body the entire time, which is glue. It's glue that you have on your body that sticks to you so that way you can catch a football. Lester Hayes basically had catches where the ball would literally stick to him. I'm not making this up. Literally, the ball would stick to him, and now he gets to keep the ball. He tried to give the ball back to the ref. Couldn't really do it because it stuck to him. Cheating. Well, actually, it wasn't cheating because it wasn't outside of the law. The rules basically said you can have it, but still, your team won Super Bowls with glue. So to say the entire organization, the entire history of the league with all these organizations didn't cheat, that seems kind of hypocritical. But with Brady, if he gets 5, he's pretty much the best, right? So I want to say I was able to see greatness when it happened because, like I said, I didn't really watch Michael Jordan when he was playing. I obviously didn't watch Montana because I wasn't alive at that point. I didn't watch Gretzky when he was playing in hockey. Like, I didn't watch all these people who were, quote-unquote, the best at their sport when they were playing. With Brady, I want to be able to say I saw the best. Right? All this stuff about the Dolphins, fine. But at least with Brady, he's 39, right? He's not going to keep doing this much longer. Once he retires, maybe the Dolphins make it a division title again. Maybe that's what happens. I mean, they won they went to the playoffs this year. Maybe they start to do divisional stuff after that, maybe, right? But I want to see history. So that's number 1. Number 2, I'm here for these jokes, okay? I want these jokes. I'm here for these jokes. These jokes are going to be fun. And what do I mean by these jokes? This is what I mean by these jokes. The Patriots had Deflategate, right? They had this whole thing 2 years ago where they, beat the Indianapolis Colts where there were shenanigans because the ball was over-deflated, underinflated, all these things. There was a lot of things. Went on for a really long time. Ted Wells made $10 million because they had an investigation and all these things like this. It was a lot of stuff, right? Went on for a really long time. It went to courts, plural. It went to courts where Brady won one time, Goodell won another time, and basically Brady was just like, all right, you know what, bleep this, I'm not doing this anymore, fine, you want to suspend me for 4 games? Suspend me for 4 games, but I'm taking this personally. Goodell, since basically Deflategate has happened, and by the way, just before we get on Deflategate a little bit more, one little tiny thing which has always irked me, and it's just me personally. Okay, we call these things Spygate, Deflategate, Bountygate, all these things that happen in the NFL that involve gates, right? And it all stems from what? From from Watergate. Watergate had nothing to do with water. Why do we call everything gate? We call it Spygate because it was spying. We call it Deflategate because deflating footballs. We call it Bountygate with the Saints because they have put bounties on people to hurt them, right? All these things have the word plus gate. It comes from Watergate. Watergate was a hotel, not water. It's just one little thing that just irritates me and just I don't understand why we do it. Anyways, moving on. These jokes. Once the Deflategate happened and he suspended Tom Brady for 4 games, he basically took it as his own little kind of like personal vendetta, like I'm going to get back at Goodell. You suspended me. He believes wrongly. You can think it was right. You can think it was wrong, whatever. But he assumes that it was for the wrong reasons, that it was kind of a witch hunt. So he and basically the entire New England fan base took it as a slight. And since that happened, Goodell doesn't show up to Foxborough. He doesn't go to Gillette Stadium to watch a game. These whole playoffs, right? First he went to Seattle. Okay, that's fine. You understand that. It's Seattle, Atlanta. Okay, cool. Seattle's a historic team in the last 5 or 6 years. Cool, you want to go to Seattle. Fine. Week after that, he goes to Atlanta. Okay, that's fine. It could potentially be the last game in the history of the Georgia Dome. Okay, that's fine. I get it. You want to go there and see everything else like that. But the thing that happened after that was Atlanta won. So it wasn't the last game in the Georgia Dome, and you already went there. So they were going to play the next week. So you either had to go to the Georgia Dome in the NFC Championship game, or you were going to go to Gillette Stadium in the AFC Championship game. But since you already went to the Georgia Dome the week before, it was like, oh, okay, cool. So now you're going to go. Excuse me. Now you're going to go to Foxborough, right? Nope. Still hasn't gone. He just basically refuses to go, and they even had chants last week, or a couple of days ago, where is Roger? Kind of thing, right? Basically chanting these things are taunting him, right? And this whole thing with Goodell and Brady, it's so awkward and just tense and everything else like that. So what I want to see, again, here for these jokes, is I want to see Goodell have to give the Super Bowl trophy and potentially MVP of the Super Bowl trophy to Tom Brady and to Kraft. Because we saw Kraft a couple of days ago when they basically had the press conference after the game, not a press conference, but they're, standing at, this thing where it's just like, oh, what does this victory mean to you? And they ask Kraft because he's the owner of the team. And Kraft is basically just like, yeah, addressing the crowd. It's like, this means a lot to us, for a lot of different reasons, which basically meant Deflategate, and thanking the fans for being there and everything else like that. So they all take this as a personal vendetta. Brady, Kraft, Belichick, all of them just basically take this as just like yeah, okay, cool. You guys burned us. Yeah, we're going to get you back kind of thing. So I just want to see Goodell have to give the trophy back, which is going to be one of the most awkward kind of things you've ever seen in your life, right? It's going to be one of those things where it's just like, oh, you can tell he just like doesn't want to do it, but it's just going to be so amazingly awkward. It may not be the most awkward thing ever because I heard one time, I didn't actually see it, but I was told basically that back in the 80s, when the Raiders were in Los Angeles and won a Super Bowl, it was when Al Davis was just in peak Al Davis mode. And he basically told the NFL, bleep you, I'm going to move to L.A. I don't care if you want to sue me. That's fine. I'm going to take this team from Oakland to Los Angeles. And if you don't like it, you don't like it. That's fine. But he always was getting into arguments and suing people in the NFL. And Paul Tagliabue had to take the trophy, and give it to Al Davis. That may have been the most awkward thing ever. But this one, it's going to be close. So those are two reasons why I'm rooting for the Patriots, right? Because I want to be here for these jokes. And I also want to say that I saw the best quarterback in the game play. Because that's kind of a thing where it's just like, you hear people say like, oh, Joe Montana was the best quarterback. Like you hear people say that because they watched him play. And they can say like, oh yeah, no, I watched him. He's the best. Oh, Michael Jordan was the best because you watched him play. I watched Tom Brady play, and I saw him go from a guy that was basically someone who was a backup that came in, that was a game manager, to the 2007 season, which is probably the best team I've ever seen in my life, in those 07 Patriots. Now be a guy who's older and have to kind of adjust his game a little bit as far as, playing with Gronk and at one time Aaron Hernandez, now Martellus Bennett, kind of go into those tight end system where you also have people like Wes Welker or Julian Edelman or Chris Hogan this last week. Basically, his offense went from, kind of check down to explosive to slot receivers and really good tight ends. Like you see him transition and do all these different things and also play in different eras, right? He played in the early 2000s when you could still pretty much, knock a quarterback around a little bit, maybe not as much as it was back in the 80s and 90s, but you could still knock him around a little bit. And then towards the mid-2000s, they started to kind of curve the whole thing. And then in 07, like I said, you weren't really touching people anymore. And he put up those really good numbers, and he's still doing it now at 39. So for those two reasons, I want to at least see the Patriots win the game. Now, if the Falcons win, it's a great season for them. Matt Ryan will be probably MVP of the season, and he'll get a Super Bowl trophy, and probably the NFL and the Super Bowl MVP trophy as well. So it'll be a great thing. And Atlanta will finally get a championship because that whole city is kind of starving for one, because you look at the Falcons and their history of not winning anything. You got the Hawks, who basically have that same kind of history, and the Atlanta Braves went to all these, won the division for many, many years, the NL East in baseball, but only made one World Series, or only won one World Series, so they're kind of snake bitten as well. So to see the city of Atlanta get the thing and to close out the Georgia Dome, that would be nice as well. But for me, the jokes and the historical context is why I kind of want to see the New England Patriots get the final Super Bowl. Now after this, after 5, that's fine. You're done. Don't worry about New England. You got 5. You're good. You yourself in this basically 16-year run have as many as the San Francisco 49ers have in their entire career. Same thing with the Dallas Cowboys. You have more than historical franchises like the Raiders and the Packers and people like that. But that's at least my perspective on it. I'm sure we'll talk about this in the coming days and over the next week or two, considering, like I said, the game is off this week. They're basically going to play the Pro Bowl, which is just like a fun little thing where you basically have people throwing and the defense not playing. So with that being said, I'm going to get out of here. We'll, I'm sure, talk about more things to come with the NFL. I'm sure we'll talk about the Pro Bowl. I'm sure we'll talk about some players and if they're going to retire and everything else like that in the coming days. But with that being said, my name is Anthony, and I will see you later. And this was the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. Have a good one, guys.